Well, one of the 8 European military observers held captive in the eastern Ukrainian town of Slavyansk has been freed. According to a spokesperson of pro-Russian activists, the observer is a Swedish national who has been released on medical grounds. The release comes following talks between a self-proclaimed mayor of Slavyansk, Vyacheslav Ponomarev, and a delegation from the Organization of the Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE. Earlier, the detained European observers were presented to more than 60 journalists in Slavyansk town hall.
We are now, since days, here in the city in the hands of the mayor of this town. We have not been touched, and we have been treated as the maximum extent which is possible under these circumstances. We have no indication when we will be sent home to our countries and to see our families.
The group gave assurances that they were not being mistreated. They were detained by pro-Russians in Slavyansk on Friday. The observers have denied the claim that they were spying for NATO. Joining us now from studios in Washington is Dr. Webster Tarpley. He's an author and historian. Many thanks for joining us here on Press TV, Dr. Tarpley. Now, looking at the current events with regards to these OSCE observers, it goes to show the level of mistrust people in eastern and southern Ukraine have with regards to anything connected with Europe. How do you see the role they're playing?
I would have to say, first of all, we should stop calling them OSCE observers, because all indications are that they are not. That is what the OSCE has been saying continuously since this started, and you can see it on their website. There are basically 2 versions. The Western media say OSCE observers, but the Russian mayor, Mr. Ponomarev, pro-Russian mayor of Slavyansk, says, no, these are spies. I'm afraid the reality seems to be going in the direction of Mr. Ponomarev. These are active duty NATO military officers. There are 4 from Germany, 1 from Sweden, Czech Republic, Denmark, and Poland, all NATO or EU. The German officers come from a place called Geilenkirchen, which is a very important NATO base. This is where the Awacs planes are flown from. It's one of the big NATO reconnaissance centers, and they particularly belong to a unit of the German army, the Bundeswehr, which is called Zentrum für Verifikationsaufgaben, the Center for Enforcement or Verification Tasks. In other words, it's military intelligence. Now, what seems also to be the case is that they were accompanied by 5 active duty Ukrainian officers of the pro-Kiev forces, so the ones that are controlled by the Putsch regime. The complicating factor is that they were riding around in OSCE vehicles. They were in a bus that seems to have been displaying OSCE markings. Now, when they were captured, there was obviously tremendous pressure exercised by the German Defense Ministry and the whole NATO apparatus on the OSCE to play along with this charade, pretending that they were sent by the OSCE, but it hasn't worked. On Friday evening in Vienna, on the first program of the Austrian television, Klaus Neukirchen, high official of the OSCE, said, this was not our group, nicht unser Besuch, not our visit. We were not the ones who did it. This is also admitted on the Deutsche Welle. The Deutsche Welle is the international TV and radio of the German Foreign Ministry. All of this exists, however, really only in German. So today, the Ukrainian foreign minister, struggling to keep up this fakery, to maintain the camouflage, the Ukrainian foreign minister said, oh, the Secretary General of the OSCE will be arriving here in order to begin the negotiations or to take them over. Very wisely, the Secretary General of the OSCE, an Italian diplomat named Lamberto Zanier, said, no, I'm not going. And he's very well advised not to go. Who knows what would happen to him if he got there. The fact is that for the first couple of days, The negotiations were conducted exclusively by the German Defense Ministry, who were the people that made the deal with Kiev to send these people in. This was so embarrassing that the German Defense Ministry leaned on the OSCE to say, why don't you go in and negotiate, which the OSCE, I think, unwisely did. I would say to Mr. Zanier, don't go to Ukraine. Rather, you should denounce the abuse and perversion of an OSCE vehicle and the name of the OSCE by what is, in fact, NATO military intelligence. And if you're caught behind enemy lines, if you're an active duty military caught behind enemy lines with no uniform, well, that's sometimes called espionage. Now, whether that's the current situation or not is not clear. But I would urge everybody, stop referring them to OSCE observers. They are not. They are NATO military officers.
Well, it sounds like business as usual for the West. We're going to have to leave it there. That was author and historian Webster Griffin Tarpley. Yes. They're joining us from Washington. Dr. Tarpley, it's always a pleasure having you with us here on Press TV.